All right, everybody. I'm excited for this. This is my either fourth or fifth leadership talk that I've done, and we're recording today. We're with John. John, I always, I don't think I've ever asked you how you pronounce your last name.
Yeah, the best. I love this example because of my background. It's hike, as in hike up a hill.
Yes, hike. I think I've said it hike. I think I've said it heek.
Yeah,
and I've never actually asked you what it actually was.
Yeah, hike me in German.
John Heick.
Yep.
Like the silent E.
It's got my middle name on here too for the university. So now everyone knows my middle name.
Right. I didn't know that about you, Dwayne. Dwayne.
Yeah.
Does
Dwayne,
anybody call you Dwayne?
Dwayne?
Does mom call you John Dwayne when she's mad? No, she doesn't.
I don't think she's ever done that.
My mom didn't ever say Robert Christopher. Mine's Christopher. She never did that either. I know a lot of mothers do, but
Christopher sounds, it sounds like, yeah, I mean, it's a strong name. I like it.
It's a good name. It's a good name. So John is, I'm going to let John tell you about himself and where he's at and what he's doing, and to start out how he got into therapy. But John is an incredible leader. Were you two-term chapter president?
No, I did one.
Oh, you just did one. I thought you did two.
I was vice president for two.
Oh, okay. That's why then. That's why. Yeah. I just didn't know your role, I guess. I thought you were president for multiple. Yeah. It seems that, yeah. So you did two vice president and one president?
Yeah.
Wow. So that seemed like 30 years.
It does. It does when you're doing it, right? Like knee deep in it. But you know what? It's kind of cool because you're just you get rolling into it and you're like, you know what? Let's go this direction. So yeah. It just kind of feeds itself.
So I met John probably, I don't know, maybe 15 years ago, maybe 12 years ago, when he asked me to come out and speak at Arizona for their state meeting. And then I've been out a couple of times since then, and we've traveled together to Canada a couple of years ago to do some presentations. And then we started writing together and doing research together. And John is just, and then he sent me a copy of all the stuff that he published. And I didn't realize you'd published as much as you have. You're like, really, the more I know you, the more I'm impressed, man. You're just like incredible.
I appreciate that. And it just winds up being, I have interest in different things. It winds up being one of these conversations like you and I are having right now. Next thing you know, we generate some research idea that we should go explore. And
you just do it all. You just do it all. So tell everyone. Tell everyone if I'm sure I've missed some leadership like positions that you've been in, because I've really just kind of scratched the surface. But tell us what other positions you've been in, and tell us why you chose physical therapy. Is your wife a therapist too? She's a
physical therapist, CWS, NCS.
Right. Wow. So, I didn't even mention the you're the triple threat. You can tell everybody about that too, man. It's you're incredible.
Sure. Thank you. I appreciate that, Rob. Probably number one, getting into PT. I knew in high school I wanted to be a physical therapist. At that time was pretty the popular thing to do. That was like a Regarding Henry movie, if you saw that way back when. And, that, of course, was one of the movies I think that contributed to, kind of the calling for doing it. But when I was a young guy, biking with my mom down a hill, next thing you know, the bike starts wobbling. I was probably 10, 8, bike starts wobbling. My sister's riding along with me, and boom, next thing you know, my mom goes over the handlebars, slid on her face, partially down the hill, stitches and everything. I go over there, I lift her head up and there's blood gushing out of her forehead. For the most part, I'm thinking at that age, she's dead.
Yeah.
And there was that point where it's like, what do you do? Of course you call for help and all those things. And of course she wound up being fine afterwards and everything, had a concussion. And I think that point, that helplessness feeling that I had at that point kind of solidified the idea of this is what I want to do, because I don't ever want to have that helpless feeling again when I'm working with someone.
Yeah, anybody. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So very caring mom. She's now 84, doing fine. So no dramatic story in terms of traumatic brain injury or anything like that.
No bad ending to it. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that's probably, looking back at it, that's probably the point where I thought for sure I was going to do healthcare. And that just led to, when you start exploring different things for physical therapy, of course, you wind up seeing we spend more time with our patients. I saw that. I went out of high school at 19. I went into the Air Force, and I got to see that. I was a medic in the Air Force, and I flew around the back of planes and took care of people in planes. And
how long were you in the Air Force?
12 years. So 5 years active,
12 years. Yeah.
7 years reserve.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's pretty trippy to think about, because at that time, like in the reserves, I was doing undergrad and everything. And you come back on Monday from your reserve time, and hey, what did you do this weekend? Oh, I went to Waikiki. What? Yeah, so I get paid to go out there and fly and take care of patients on the way.
We had what year was that?
That was 93. So
93.
I was doing that.
We had, when I started teaching, probably within several years of when I was teaching, we had a student, his name was Rick Clark, and he was in, I think he was the Air Force.
Okay.
But he would go on the weekends. It was like right after, this was not long right after 9/11, or maybe in the same year that 9/11 happened. And he would come to class on morning, he'd be kind of tired on Monday, and I'd say, well, what'd you have to do over the weekend? He said, I literally spent, 24 hours circling Washington in a refueling jet. So he would go from Wichita in one of the refuelers. Yeah, he's just flying around like Washington to Florida and back and forth.
Probably.
Yeah.
AC-135 boom operator.
Yeah,
That's a
that was cool.
Job.
Yeah.
But,
so I just thought that was amazing that the guy's in PT school, and then on the weekends he's doing that.
Exactly.
And then back in PT school. I'm just sitting at home, looking at some journals and, going to kids' sports, watching basketball games, and he's like refueling stuff, helping protect
saving
America.
the world. So to
speak. Incredible.
It was good to me, and it got me interested into PT, because I could see the different professions in healthcare and how much time I get to spend with patients. And so that kind of led to physical therapy. And interestingly, with the concussion thing, you mentioned the triple certification, ortho, sports, and neuro. Then that kind of made sense to me. In PT school, then I went to Shenandoah University for PT school in Virginia. I'm originally from Virginia, and wound up going back there for PT school. And then in my clinical rotation, I got to do vestibular rehabilitation. And that was my first time being really exposed to that, because back then you really didn't learn much about it in PT school.
Yeah.
So the ortho neuro sports winds up being about concussion, because that's then what my dissertation was on, concussion assessment. So I wanted to be able to appeal to all three groups in terms of knowing the different areas in terms of the incorporation of the vestibular system and concussion assessment. Now it's all the rage, and at the time it was just
it wasn't.
So
I don't know what the do you even know what the percentage of people that are triple board certified are? I mean, the number that are double board certified are very minimal. So it's triples. There can't be more than a handful, can there?
I don't know right now. Derek Stepp is in charge of AAPT in terms of that whole process. I sent an email because someone did ask me that question. I didn't know the answer, so I sent him an email. He said there's 5 people.
5, yeah. And there can't be more. 5 out of how many? I mean, how many physical therapists are there in the United States? And you're one of 5.
Yeah, wow. and members alone is 100,000. So
yeah,
it's kind of nice to.
Yeah, you're in big company there, buddy.
But yeah, I guess one of the things I do, and I taught patho this morning, and I tell the students, and sorry for the long story. I tell the students they get the abnormal professor to teach patho because pathology is abnormal. So I can make that same statement about certified too.
There you
Pick
go.
the abnormal guy to do that. And people think, ah, you're a freak. And it's like, well, there's actually some reasoning behind it. But
Yeah, no doubt.
no
No doubt.
Right?
Yeah, yeah. So tell me as far as leadership, what other leadership roles have you had other
Yeah.
than the ones I've named?
So I think the biggest thing when you are first getting started, of course, is, you wind up being interested in all these different things. And that's me. And I love the profession. It was ingrained into us in PT school. And so, I did the Southern District representative for Arizona. I did a delegate. I've done chief delegate. I've done the federal affairs liaison for Arizona. I did all those things because all of those things were cool to me. They weren't like I was checking a box. And I have a lot of people that I know that do that for that reason. And you can tell that, right?
Yeah, you can tell. Yeah,
You really
just talking
can.
to the people. Yeah.
Right. And so all those things kind of led then, vice president is to be in charge of programming. So I did that, jumped into the president slot for Arizona. It's a 5-year tour. So basically you do president-elect 3 years as president, and then 1 year as past president. So winds up being all of that. In terms of leadership stuff, I'm in charge now for a program director for 2 campuses. So we have a Phoenix campus and a Flagstaff campus. Here's the Flagstaff campus. Phoenix is down south. It's a little hotter down there, as you know, Rob. But so we have the 2 campuses, and I'm program director for that.
You guys have both. You have a chair separate from the program director?
Yeah. We have a chair that oversees both of them, and then we used to have a program director at both spots, but you know how COVID is.
Yeah.
That's changed everything. So I'm wearing both hats for that.
Yeah.
It's kind of cool. In terms of leadership things beyond that, most of them have been APTA related. I have done some community stuff, but board member for community organizations and things like that. But I think president's probably the biggest one in terms of that.
Yeah.
Right now, for APTA, I should mention as well, I'm on the reference committee. That winds up being in terms of the House of Delegates. So House of Delegates, I've been involved since 2005 until now. So the delegate, chief delegate, now reference committee. So we'll see where that takes us. In the future, I've considered, and I think I've talked to you a little bit about that idea of potentially shooting for things like a board of director for APTA. We'll see. Does that work out for me, or does it not? Just because
just roll with it, man. Roll with it right now.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
if it happens, it happens.
The nice thing about it is in leadership positions, I think, is you get to make change and see that change through, right? So if I can change the profession and make it better for everyone else, I'd love to do that.
Yeah.
Any way I can contribute to that, even if it's for a small group. Oh, that's the other thing. I'm involved in primary care in terms of we're trying to get a specialization in residency in primary care. And
primary care PT?
PT, yeah. So I worked in the emergency department previously as a PT, and vestibular rehabilitation is one of the areas that often come into the emergency department thinking that they've had a stroke or something. And you wind up, fixing that person's vestibular problem, right? Or identifying it, at least, getting them on that pathway. So I'm also involved in that as the lead person for the profession. But yeah, I think those are the bigger things.
Oh, that's plenty. My God, it's like way more than most. Trust me, way more than most.
Well, you just get involved, and then the next thing you know,
I know, it just rolls, doesn't it? And then the more you do, the more you get asked, and you got to be up to the plate to get a hit, don't you? And
yes, absolutely. And if you're not in the ballpark, nothing's going to happen.
That's right. You're exactly right. So can you give me, and I guess if you don't want to give a name, you don't have to give an actual name, but can you name any person who's had the most impact for you in regards of like a role model or mentor as you kind of traveled in different leadership roles?
Yeah, there's so many people, I think, that they're kind of like the idea of angels that are kind of guiding you as you're going along. You run into someone and they say something, and next thing you know, that changes your pathway. So I don't know
who's done that for you. Who
Roush.
Jim, big Jim.
Yeah, when I was a clinician at the time, I was teaching nights for a PTA program in Tucson. So Tucson's wound up being about 100 miles from Phoenix, and we were at an APTA meeting, and he said, you know, we got an open position at the university. If you like teaching the PTAs, I bet you'd like teaching the PTs. And it's a simple thing like that, and all of a sudden, whoop, the trajectory changed from that just simple conversation. So I would actually kind of point to Jim. He's always been good to me and always been supportive of physical therapists in Arizona that are, you know, helping the profession. So I would point to him. I wouldn't say necessarily that he's a mentor that we met all the time and, you know, he told me which way it is, and you know, but he also has sort of guided me. So I think guiding is important in this. And then I think, you know, you meet different people, and all of a sudden they'll say another thing, and next thing you know, you're going in a different direction. And you know, I think in our profession we have lots of people like that. There's
so many. I'm just thinking, if you were to ask me that same question, I don't know who I would tell, because there's so many people that have had an impact that it's really hard to pick one.
Here's another one. Steve Tepper. Steve Tepper was a chair for Shenandoah University. And, I can directly point to him and say, because he said this, I did this. And so I think there's a lot of that. Florence Kendall came and did one of our, for our graduation, the commencement speech. And, you know, some of the things that she said resonated with me at the time. It's funny because, you know, I don't know if you've heard the story about or been able to interact with her or not, but you know, we had a couple of my classmates pick her up at the airport at Dulles and drive her over to Shenandoah, which is not, you know, maybe 45 minutes. But they said as soon as they went to grab her suitcase, she started asking them questions about muscle attachments and actions. And
she did that with us. She did that with us in '92. She came to speak at a meeting in Kansas, and there were about 5 of us students that she used as an example for flexibility and things. And so we got introduced to her before the conference even starts, like 7:30 in the morning, and she starts hammering you. Origin, insertion, innervation questions. You're like, wait a minute, I'm first year. I just got the
I gotta have my coffee first, right? You know, her Stanley Paris was another one that did one of our commencement address. And you know,
wow, you've had some big people doing commencement stuff. That's incredible.
Yeah, Steve Tepper has good connections in terms of knows you know, some of the great minds in our profession and really shaped things. So and then, you know, involvement. You're at the House of Delegates, for example. So you know, it usually corresponded to next. You got to see the different presentations. You know, and Rich Shields, for example, wonderful Randy Nudo. So lots of different people that have, you know, said something, and you're like, oh wow, that is so powerful. The next thing you know, you come back from a conference or one of these events, and you're like, you're gung ho about, you know, PT again. You're like, yes.
Yeah.
It's
that's the beauty.
CSM, right?
Yeah, that's the beauty of the conferences. Yeah, you should, if you start feeling a little dragging or a little low, you go to that, and then all of a sudden, you know, for the next 6 months or so, you're just like wired, and you got all kinds of ideas, and you're excited again, and that's the beauty of it.
Same thing happened for us when we went up to Vancouver.
I
came back from that all jazz, and we went in lots of different directions in terms of publications and things. It just, next thing you know, it made itself.
I mean, that meeting was really, really valuable in so many ways. And I'm sure you did the same way. You had no idea that any of that was going to occur. You know, just by chance.
Exactly.
But again, think about it, John. If you're not up to bat, it ain't going to happen. If you're not in the game, you don't. Those things don't happen. You gotta be at the game for that to occur. If both of us would have been sitting at home that weekend, maybe working on some other project. None of that would
You
have
might
happened.
not be. You might be off doing this course and that course and writing this book and that book. And oh my God, brother, you're a busy man yourself.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned Jim, because he's like one of the guys. Do you remember we had the? Well, I know you remember because I ask you all the time if you still have that picture of us with the cowboy. What was that place called? Hat. The saloon. What was the saloon called?
Rustler's Roost.
Wrestler's Roost. Yeah, that was a good night, man. That was a fun time.
He's a funny guy.
Right? Oh yes, and every time I've been back, he's always at the meeting. He always comes, talks to me. He tells me about his research he's doing. He asks me questions about what I'm doing. He's just a great guy.
He's retired. He's retired now, and now he is a professor emeritus. But he's a chief delegate for Arizona. He's doing that even after
still active. Yeah,
he's very active. So
good for him.
These guides, these people are out there. They'll say one thing, the next thing you know, you're changing your trajectory. So it's huge thing to be, like you said, in the ballpark to even have that experience.
That's right. So tell me if you had, if you remember, maybe some of the best, two things. Tell me some of the best advice that anyone's ever given you. And then if you can remember, like really some of the worst advice maybe someone's given you. And this doesn't have to be, it could be about work. It doesn't have to be just leadership oriented. It could be about family. It could be anything.
Okay. Eric Hedges told me once, I asked him a question at the time a junior faculty, and I said, what advice might you have for junior faculty in terms of getting things done? And I loved what he said. He said, what I always try to do, and I'm paraphrasing, so if Eric's listening, sorry.
Sorry if I butcher this.
Right. What I always try to do is I take one thing and see, can that one thing be spun into something else? So if you're on a project, for example, our project with looking at the scapula and doing a poster, next thing you know, it became a paper. Next thing you know, we applied for a grant. So, taking one thing and sort of spinning that thing to see where it goes. And I think that was very helpful advice that I've heard. In terms of specifically like leadership, I would think back to my dad, and my dad was in terms of work ethic, and he always would say, don't cheat, steal, or lie, do any of those things, and I don't want to be associated with you. And those are very simple words that you think of, but there's a stuck into my head. I use that every time I start a course to teach a course for our students, to say, you do those things, I'm going to throw you out of the program, and I'm going to do my best to keep you out of the program, because we don't need anyone like you in our program if that's the case. So I think those are key things. And then his work ethic. My dad was
your dad. What was your dad? What did he do?
He's an electrician.
Oh, okay.
He's an electrician. So he was a Navy man for 20 years, and then worked for a electrician company. And then, pretty trippy, in terms of his job, things were starting to get bad in terms of the economy and everything else. And the boss basically said, you know what, we're going to pay you by the ticket. In other words, by the job. And my dad's like, no, I don't think so. I'm not going to do this. And so at the time, he started his own company as an electrician. He had and I didn't know this until I was older, he had like $100 in the bank. And so
when he started the job,
started his own business, and became, not super successful, but middle class successful, and fed us, made sure all the bills are paid, of course. His work ethic was like, it's Saturday, what job can I do? He's always working his butt off. So I think
you learned that from your dad. The
work ethic,
or at least you had a good role model for it.
Yes. And you and I talked about dads before a little bit in terms of chatting about the things that your dad taught you as well.
Well, I've told you my dad is my dad. I think he's joking about it, but he's really not completely joking. he's told me that the way he's handled his life is like, not good at all. And that I should have learned, I should learn how to do my life by not doing what he did, and not follow
not following
his
example, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes I think maybe that's why I do what I do and try to overachieve the way I do because of that. Maybe, I don't know. I mean, sure, I'm sure we could, if I had a couch, I could lay down and you could psychoanalyze me for hours to figure all my issues. But
well, no, I
sure
think
that's
it's
one of them.
ingrained in us, right? Because of that background, I think it's kind of ingrained in us to follow that lead because of something someone said, and it's guided us to the point where we are today, chatting right now.
Yeah, I don't know that I was really. I know when I was younger with like sports, I would really get into that and like put all my effort into that. And then maybe it's just because school happened and therapy came after that, when I realized I wasn't going to be a professional ball player or something, I could just put all my energy into that. So maybe I had it when I was younger, but it wasn't toward work when I was younger. It was, toward fun things and things that I enjoy.
Sure.
But I do enjoy my work. So it's
yeah,
kind of similar. Yeah.
Right. I think the other thing you said, bad advice. I don't know if this is really bad advice, but I think it's interesting in terms of the guiding part. When I came, the NAU logos over there. When I came here, I got out of the Air Force, and so if you can try to picture that, I didn't know anyone here, didn't know anyone in the state at the time. Came to the university. I, for the most part, I was treated like a first-class citizen in the Air Force. When I got here, I wound up having a roommate. I have a sink in my room that leaks all the time. It was just like, why am I doing this? And I knew that, of course, I'm going to go for physical therapy. So I walk across campus and, not far away from this picture in the background, to the building here. And I talked to the advisor for the first time. It's an exercise science. It's actually, the room is 2 stories above where I'm at right now. And the advisor looks at what I've done so far in community college and through the Air Force. And again, the Air Force, I'm a full-time in the Air Force, but taking classes, college classes at night. So of course my grades aren't going to be the best.
Yeah.
So he looks at my application or my grades at the time, says, you'll never be a physical therapist. Don't do that. Just, forget about that. And maybe you can go on, X, Y, or Z track and pursue that. So I remember, in terms of guiding, walking away from the building, and so I'm going to show that.
Yeah.
In terms of that reaction and his comment, I did. Who's now on the program director. It's 2 stories down for the program. In terms of that same individual, he's no longer here, but I think sometimes the negative comments that at the time, you need to hear those also to guide you.
No, you do. You really do.
I don't know if that's really negative advice, but I think that
no, it's not. Well, that is negative advice. I think you can take advice as negative. I don't know that I've ever talked about this on these sessions that I'm doing on leadership, but George Davies, he's probably one other than maybe my wife, he's one of the few people that actually is like totally honest with you. Or I don't know if he is with everybody, but he is with me, and I appreciate it so much, because you do it. You think that maybe you'd get tired of it, but like you do a talk that he's at, and afterwards, I'm not kidding you. Sometimes he'll have a list for me of things that I need to do better when I'm speaking.
But here's the thing: you're willing to listen to him.
No, because he's like, right? he knows.
Yeah.
I mean, have you heard him talk? He's like an expert.
I know.
Why wouldn't I listen to him? But you can take that feedback and say, oh, well, hell with you. I thought I did a good job.
You could, but
you don't.
You're trying to improve yourself. right?
Yes, but I appreciate him telling, being honest and giving me the information that maybe he thinks I wouldn't want to hear. But I really appreciate the honesty, because most people, you say, how was my, if you ask them, you say, well, how'd that talk go? It went great, went fantastic. You did a great job. He doesn't tell you that. He tells you, he may say you did a good job, but here are, 4 things you need to pay attention to, next year, or, as you
Yeah,
do your study or whatever. And
yeah,
not
yeah.
everyone will do that for you.
And you did a course of residency with him, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. I was his second resident
right,
back in
right,
90, 97, 98.
right. Yeah, I think that we need those people as well in our life to tell us this, be
Well,
honest.
straight up. Yeah. Yeah.
You don't always get that. You're right. Some
No,
people
no.
sugarcoat it, or don't want to hurt someone's feelings or something like that. But I think that totally makes us better.
You have to really, what I realized too, and maybe I've never really talked to him about it, but maybe because I've tried that now, like as more
Just
of a
someone else?
senior fact. Yeah, and
Huh?
it totally didn't work. It blew up. So I think you have to know. Maybe, I guess I thought it worked with everyone, but what I found out is that there's certain people that doesn't work with. I mean, you can be honest with some people, and they'll just it just implodes.
Yeah, yeah. I think in leadership that you see that, right? And if
Yeah.
you think about your role previously, if you were to take that approach with, maybe some of your faculty, they wouldn't appreciate that.
Yeah.
Same here in terms of.
So you got to know your people. You got to know your people, and maybe he realized that he could do that, and it wouldn't affect me, or I would implode. I don't know. I should probably ask him about that sometime, just to dig, just to try to dig a little deeper. Yeah. Yeah.
Doing one of these talks with him would be.
Yeah. No, I haven't asked him yet, but he's definitely on the list, because he's got so much knowledge, and he's done so many things. And yeah. I mean, he was there he's like all those guys that were there like at the very beginning of like the sports section. He's like the maverick, that started.
Orthopedics when it switched over and everything. Like, I think the history in terms of that.
Yeah.
I've seen some of the I'm editor for the Orthopedic Physical Therapy and Practice for the Orthopedic Academy, and I remember looking at that when he did his initial one of the first articles from it. I don't know if you've followed that back then, but pretty cool to see all the things that he's done and how he's impacted our profession, specifically for sports and ortho.
No doubt.
Yep.
So tell me, and this could include qualities you feel like you have, but like if you think of people that you see, or maybe you try to, the qualities that they have that you try to emulate, what are the qualities that you think the best leaders have? I
was thinking you were going with presenters, but in the quality for best leaders, I think number one, the person that actually was in this chair previously, it's just Lori Kornberger, has these fantastic skills in terms of communication and making everyone feel like they're appreciated, making everyone feel like that they're the most important thing. And I try to do that. I can't even come close to her communication skills and her ability to make you feel good with every interaction. She would poo-poo that if she was listening to this, but I know I really have admired people's ability to do that. That's another thing that you don't see a lot of in terms of communication. Some people that you mentioned the honesty part, that's the other one that in terms of communication and really nailing that, I think that's a huge
it's a learning curve, because I don't think I'm good at it either, to be honest with you, or I'm not very good at all, really. I think I'm getting better with it as I age.
You recently posted a tweet and you had a picture of you sitting at the desk kind of like this, and I think is it 23 years?
Yeah 24th. I think it's my 23rd or 24th.
It's amazing to think about all the things you've been through and all the things that you've done in teaching, and I can appreciate that being not that long along. I'm applying for full professor here in the fall, and you know, it's that's a lot of things, I think, is a nice way to put it.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, but think of how much you've changed and grown over that time. I mean, it's really kind of amazing if you think about it.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
The way you looked at things back then compared to the way you look at things now.
Yes.
Way you handled things back then compared to the way you handle things now.
I have a friend that, you know, he's hit 61, and he says, you know, it's really interesting at that age when you reflect back on the different ages and the mindset during those ages through your career. And specifically, he was saying, you know, he gets together with other 60-year-olds, and they can totally, in terms of meeting and talking about these kind of things right now, they can totally like see that, you know, over time with different people, and so they're it's just a different mindset. I'm not there in the 60s or anything yet, but
you probably are. I mean, I'm sure you are to some degree. You just don't until you like talk about it, and you sit back and look at it from a, yeah. You don't really see it.
We do a lot of that in academics. We're sort of, you know, the next thing is you know, this semester, and so it's the next talk, it's the next whatever it winds up being, and it's, you're always on to the next thing.
Yeah, you're not looking behind. Yeah, there's not a lot of behind. Yeah.
No, you really don't do much of that.
I don't know that I looked behind a lot. Really, what made me think about doing these interviews and, you know, potentially writing a book in the future is I've been reading more books just about leadership, and I don't know that I'm ever going to be in like really a leadership role, but in reading books after being in a leadership position, and I mean, I think I was okay, but I really wasn't very good. And the more I read and the more I learn, I see how horrible I was at times as a director. I was like the program director and the chair both.
Right.
And I think of, you know, they give scenarios in, you know, the books of things that happen, and I think, oh my God, that's, you know, exactly what they said you shouldn't do is what I did. And I thought at the time that was how I needed to handle it. Or, you know, like I said, you know, just being honest with someone and then imploding on you. I should have handled that different. So there's all this stuff that I think, man, I was really, I mean, I'm sure there were some good things that I did, but I was really horrible at a lot of it. And so I need to, I mean, I just got to keep learning, or this is just all for nothing, you know?
Yeah, no, I'm doing the used to be called Eli. I'm doing now they call it the Education Leadership Fellowship.
Yeah, I looked into that when I was the chair. I looked into it. I didn't ever do it, but I was thinking about it, seriously thinking about it.
It's pretty cool because, you know, right now we're in the second module, so we're just at the very beginning. It's a year-long leadership fellowship, but I have like on my nightstand, I have like 6 books that I'm just kind of filtering through. Okay, this one for now, this one for now, and kind of going back and forth. And you know, you are in one case of, you know, like The Speed of Trust. I don't know if you've read that book, but I think it's a really interesting book. Stephen Covey's son wrote it. And it's really well done. I think that's one. Like you said, though, in terms of reading books, you know, all these different books that you're reading, I think adds to going back to the idea of reflection, to reflect on things in leadership. And, you know, perhaps those things, like you just said, of things that you might have done differently now, based off of this, you know, what you know now, right?
Yeah.
This age, now we have the chance potentially to change that up. And you know, we're always trying to get better, like fine wine, right? So
that's right.
I think if you don't, you really become stagnant. And I've seen a number of stagnant people too, to where you know that they're stagnant, and you want to help them. So sometimes just saying something will, I think, again, sort of help those individuals.
Yeah. So what have you read any? Since you're a military guy, do you ever listen to or read Jocko's stuff? Jocko Willink. Have you heard of him?
No.
Oh, you got to listen to him. I think you would love him.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I'll send you. I'll send you the email of his, or I'll email you some of the books I've got of his that I think you would really like. And he's got like a podcast you can listen to, and he takes
Oh.
like war and um, uh, things like that, but relates them to things in real life.
Well, here I got one for you. I kind of had an idea you were going to. Have you seen the movie Unbroken?
No.
You gotta see that movie.
Who's in it?
Story, and there's a scene in it where this individual, he winds up, short version of it, plane crashes. They get picked up by the enemy, Japanese at this point, because that's the time of history it was, and basically goes through heck. It's a nice way to put it. But there's a scene in it where there's a raft. They have 2 rafts, and I think at the time there's 3 of them. But the problem is for the raft, number one, they see a plane will fly over, and so that they can rescue, hey, right? And so they try to get the alert, and it winds up being the enemy. And so they're in this raft, and they jump in the water because now they're getting shot at by the enemy. They jump in the water, there's sharks in the water. And the sharks are swimming around, and then they're getting closer and closer. They get out, get back in the raft. Now they're getting shot at again. So there's a scene where they're jumping back and forth. They actually, the one raft is shot up, but they wind up, patching the other one. So in terms of life, sometimes as a leader, I feel like I'm on that raft, shot at, and I jump in the water, and here's the sharks, and you're like sitting in a scenario where it's like, what do you do?
What am I doing? Yeah.
You don't feel like you have any other options to of what's available, right?
Yeah.
It's a powerful scene. And
no, I bet that sounds
in my head in terms of that. In the book, Laura Hildebrand, I think, is the author. I'm gonna
have to have you, so you can email me, or text me that your books you're talking about, and I'll email and text you the ones that I'm talking about. Yeah,
sharing. That's what it's all about, right? Network.
Yeah, that's right. So tell me how several things that I think are important as leaders, and you really didn't mention these, but you really just talked about it for just a minute. But tell me how you feel trust and someone's character. Why are they important as being a leader? So like as you being a leader of your or the program director now of your department, well, how does character and trust, because both of those are really
key,
I think, hugely important.
Yeah, I think one of the things I thought, and I've done a leadership course through our university. One of the things I really liked was there was an activity. I'm answering the question by painting the scenario. They took the little "Hello, my name is" tag, and you had to write down your 4 values. Your 4 values of what really adjectives to describe you, and that you really feel like, integrity, flexibility, things like that. And then you walk around and chat with the people afterwards and talk about your different values. And so I think one of them, in terms of trust and the integrity part, is just huge in terms of being able to relate to people. And like you said, for George, he's able to say those things to you because you trust him, his intention in terms of he's trying to get you better. And that's why he's mentioning these things that you need to work on for next time. It's a similar thing. If you don't have that trust, or you don't have that mold in terms of character, no one will listen to you. No one will take your advice. No one will follow what it is that you're telling them. So I think that's a huge thing, is to sort of be real with people. Like you said when we started the interview, in terms of just chatting, in terms of being able to just trust someone. I think that is huge. And speed of trust, I think the book talks specifically about techniques that you can do to improve or speed up that process.
Yeah, I was just thinking as you were saying that doesn't happen overnight.
It does
it
not.
takes time. Yeah, you got to spend time.
And know that better than many people.
Yeah.
In terms of your leadership roles that you played, But I think being real with people and you know, potentially also direct instead of you know, beating around the bush and you know, telling them a line of BS that's
Just something they want to hear. Yeah.
maybe they want to hear. Exactly.
Yeah.
Is very powerful. And back to the character part too, I think our you know, when we reflect on these things, I think our parents, our upbringing really brings forth those values and sets our character way back then to be the person that we want to be. And we're emulating our parents in that process, or emulating the people that have guided us throughout life. And I think that part of what when we're thinking about, you know, in a leadership role, if we don't have that good foundation, it has to come from somewhere else to be able to help guide us into that and becoming that leader.
There's nothing wrong with that. Finding other people to emulate or to use as you know, to help build your character.
Right. Is and one of the things for the Education Leadership Fellowship, they, you know, they talk about these different theories behind leaders, and we have kind of a mixed up way of thinking of that leader. Of, you know, we have an individual, and maybe you've had that person for you, Rob, I don't know, but basically the dictator, and basically said, no, it's this way, no, it's that way. It's called trait theory. And in terms of leadership principles and leadership understanding, that individual winds up being very authoritarian and telling us, you know, yes, no, and very direct, but also then, you know, very critical. And so I've also had individuals like that in jobs previously, you know, that you know, dissuade you from going that leadership route because of that trait of being, you know, too authoritarian and too militaristic, which of course may not work for all types of employees or those that you're leading. Right.
You're right. You can't. Yeah, you got to really be. I don't know. You got to be a little bit of everything.
You do. Yeah. And
there are times you have to be authoritarian, but there's times you could be easily too authoritarian, and so you have to know.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I'm sorry. The other one is, you know, you have to do one approach for one person, and you know, perhaps another approach for another one. And you know, when you're in a group, and it's more difficult to you know, come across as you know, cohesive or as a team. And I think part of that is the language, and you'll hear that with one of the things that talk about in the leadership books, of course, that I'm reading now, of course, is the, you know, my faculty, and using those frames in terms of the terms that we use matter, and as opposed to we and us and our faculty, and that's more encompassing. So that's a simple thing, but you'll see that, you'll hear that in people that are talking in terms of program chairs, directors, things like that. I don't know if you've seen The Chair on Netflix, but I understand there's 6 episodes for The Chair, and it's pretty powerful from what I understand.
I think I've seen that advertised. I've seen it advertised, but I haven't watched it.
I have too. I saw the advertisement, but I just heard directly from someone that I consider also my mentor, Sean Collins, out in Plymouth State University, mentioned you got to see that. You got to see that show. It says really interesting.
Yeah, you know, and I forgot about it till you just mentioned it, but I remember seeing it and thinking that would be an interesting one to watch.
Yeah, so there you go. I've given you a couple books and a show to watch.
Yeah, you're giving me all kinds of stuff. You're giving me all kinds of things to fill my time with.
I don't know if you need that. You're a busy man.
So tell me, what is what do you think? Maybe not just like everything your entire life, but what do you think has been like the biggest challenge in your life? Maybe since like more in rehab than, or not rehab, but academics or rehab.
Okay. I think in rehab, you know, if we're talking about patients, it's changing behavior. That's the biggest thing, is in terms of changing someone's behavior. You know,
but you can't always.
No,
or you can try. That's the problem with society, is behavior.
Yes. yes. I think
I was just talking to a friend the other day. We were working out where he was asking about, people, having all these problems and diseases and everything and, overweight and everything. And he said, they just need to exercise. They just need to do whatever. And I said, dude, it goes so much. And you have no idea. That's like scratching the surface. It goes so much deeper than that we don't even realize. And unfortunately, it's how do you change that?
I know.
So when someone comes to see you for 30 minutes twice a week, you can't change their behaviors.
No, I think you can guide them.
No, you definitely guide them, give them advice and hope they follow. But
I don't know if you read Nudge. Nudge is another one.
No, you got to add that to the list. You got to put that on my list.
Let me write it down. Yeah, I think when you think of the different possibilities in terms of nudging them, making a suggestion, maybe that they're at the time that they need to hear it and they actually hear it and understand it. I think that happens along the way as we, whether rehab or education or all the different things that we do, is sometimes we're at the time in our life where that thing that we've heard before now resonates with us.
Yeah, because you don't know when that's going to happen with them.
Right.
And the other thing that I think helps a lot, John, and me, I'm assuming you do too, is if it's different if you just say, you need to get in shape and you need to exercise and you need to be healthy. But if I, who am telling them needs to do that, don't do it.
Yeah, you have to set the model.
Yeah. So I think it's important for us to be healthy and, to look at least halfway healthy. And I love it when like old patients see me somewhere exercising or at the gym, because then I can say, hey, I've told you, you need to come in here. I do it all the time. When I'm not here, I'm doing an elliptic. If I'm not here, I'm doing elliptical at home. I said almost every day I'm doing some type of exercise, just like you should, like I've told you, you should.
Right.
And so when
walk the walk, talk the talk, right?
Thank you. Yeah. I think that's very powerful.
Oh, it is. It is. And so you mentioned rehab and then in education, biggest challenges. I think in terms of biggest challenges for education, part of it was, I think for me, in the past, it's probably my own thing, but it felt like I wasn't being respected at the point where it's like, what I have to do, and it was what I had to do was in my mind to get respect. And so I think it's more of a communication thing, as opposed to, and it's my own thing. So I need to point the finger at myself and
kind of an ego thing.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's ego, and I don't feel like I have a big ego. I'm okay with.
Well, you may not, but you still have one. And
absolutely.
Yeah. If someone
like erase it, it would be nice to be able to erase
it. Yeah, we've all got it. And if someone, if someone attacks you, or even if they're not meaning to attack you, or
right,
for whatever reason you feel out of sorts or like you've been disrespected, I think it's very easy for you to respond in some manner and feel the way you describe. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So I think in terms of the biggest challenges is realizing for that, when that happened to me, that's probably more me than it is that person's intention in terms of respect.
I think a lot of it, a lot of stuff we get upset about or we're frustrated about is us more than probably the person, because the person may not. I mean, I have one of the best lessons. I guess I've thought about this before. If I were to ask myself what's like a important lesson someone told me or advice someone gave me, is former several deans back. The dean, there's a dean that came to Wichita State literally 6 months after I started, and he stayed for like 16 years, which is unheard of as far as deans go. And his name's Peter Cohen. He was really into leadership stuff, huge into leadership stuff. That was like his life. And one time he told me a story about how, I think he was in San Antonio at a university once, and someone in a paper wrote something that was kind of derogatory toward him, or it was off-putting. It wasn't what he felt was
Correct. Right?
correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he like went to his boss and said, hey, I want someone to call this person, the paper, and we could sue them for this, or I don't know if he wanted to sue. I'm paraphrasing now, so if he's watching this, I'm sorry if I'm butchering, but he was totally upset about the whole thing. He was just like wanting someone to do something to resolve it and get it right. And he said his boss said, yeah, and his boss said, Pete, don't take it personal.
Yeah.
And he said, well, what do you mean don't take it personal? They wrote this stuff about me. And he said, but it's not, he said, it's not personal. They wrote what they felt. For whatever reason, they wrote what they felt. And yes, it may be directed at the university and the department you're in charge of, but it's not personal. I'm sure they don't dislike you. I don't think they're mad at you. It's not, you're taking this way too personal than you should. And he said, I had to really totally step back and realize that, you know what, maybe that person had a bad day, and maybe they got some false information, but it wasn't something that, he said, I just blew it completely out of, when it really didn't need to be. And, he was telling me, there are going to be times where people, say negative things to you, or people that are mad at you, or they think you screwed something up. And just realize that it isn't personal. They're not attacking you per se. They're maybe attacking something you did or something you said, but they're not really attacking you. Right. And until you can step back and see that, you get mad then, and you get frustrated, and you make mistakes, and you yell, and you gotta like step out of the box, or look at it from a wider view and say that, in the big scheme of things, this really isn't important, and there's no need to get upset about it.
Yeah, there's in Flagstaff's kind of a laid back kind of come as it goes kind of a community, and driving around, there's a bumper sticker that I see, and of course it's got a Buddha on it, and which is interesting and everything, but it's often one of the things that people are experiencing as they're learning and developing throughout life. But one of the bumper stickers says, "Let that shit go." That's a wonderful statement.
So simple.
It's so simple, but
it's so true.
If we could do that,
isn't that the truth?
Oh, I think we would be in a better place many times. And similar thing for Peter, as you're describing. You just have to, but you have to get out of that frame, that negative aspect, and then examine it. Why am I reacting so much to this, in this case, this article? And learn from it, so that you can roll with that. Letting it go, I think, is a great advice. It's like you said, so simple, but it if we could change behavior of people's blood pressure, watching the news, for example, easily. Oh my gosh, total negativity. I think we need a 24-hour channel of good news instead of headline news and the different things that we have out there. We need just good news, and that's it the whole time. I think people would pay lots of money to
a good news channel. A good news channel.
Yes.
Because there's stuff going on. There is good stuff going on. You just don't hear about it. Because of all the negative.
That stuff. It builds you up.
Yeah. So we're getting close to an hour here. So I'm gonna ask you a couple of these questions that are more fun than really leadership. And this is really good. I mean, I barely scratched the surface of those. I mean, we talked about but we only talked about, I didn't talk about hardly any of the questions. I mean, questions. I have a whole list. And we didn't hardly get through any of them. I mean, we may have to have a interview with you, a part 2. We get back to some of the other things. So tell me, if you had, maybe you saw this one down toward the bottom, if you had a giant billboard in Flagstaff that could say anything you wanted, what would your billboard say? It's your own personal billboard, and you want people to know something, what would you say?
That's a good one. One of the things we did in the physical therapy is a side note, and then I'll try to answer the question. It gives me time to answer.
That's why I was wondering if you're trying to answer.
One of the things we did for physical therapy is we actually did do a billboard and had a physical therapist on the billboard to kind of illustrate the idea of the things that we can do. And we got pretty good responses from it. At the time, they had the Choose PT logo was the good thing, and we had like 20,000 responses to the
that's pretty good
billboard that was in Phoenix at the time. This physical therapist helping a patient with CP, a young man with CP. I think my billboard would be something along the lines of profession. I think really, this is just from the heart, from the brain. I don't see myself retiring. I can't see that time period. I know that people think about that time frame, and right now in my 50s, 53, no, I 65 just doesn't sound like a time period.
There's too much to do. There's too much you want to do, right?
So my billboard would be something along of the profession, to support the profession, because I think that, and not for any kind of financial reasons, but just to kind of let people know what physical therapists do. I'm wearing this tie, and it's a terrible thing. I don't know if you can see the tie well enough.
It looks like bones, right?
Exactly. So what do you think the question is that I get asked the most when they see this tie, and it's a bunch
bone
of
would have missed?
Mostly spines. What do you think they ask me?
What a certain bone is?
Are you a chiropractor?
Oh,
It's the first question I get asked, and it really.
No, I'm not.
It's like a slap in the face. No offense to chiropractors. I have friends that are chiropractor PTs and also chiropractors, but it's somewhat of a slap in the face of what we do, because so many people don't know what we do.
Yeah. Well, there just hasn't been a big there isn't a big advertising push for physical therapy yet.
And that's the thing that we need to capture. It's low-hanging fruit of being able to say we do these things. And it could go a long way. So my billboard would be something around physical therapy.
So what is if you could give a new grad, and maybe you do give them advice?
Try to.
What's the best advice you would give? What's the best advice you would give a young therapist? If they ask you what advice can you give me about PT?
About PT. The biggest thing that I think is we have a lot of people that know that, perhaps we have people that know exactly what they want to do when they get in PT school and they go down that direction. We also have people that are not sure because they're interested in multiple things.
Like you. Yeah.
So my advice would be, when you get out of PT school, work your primary job, whatever that might be. Maybe it's Monday to Friday or whatever your time frame is, 8 to 5, what have you. But then intermittently throughout the month, let's say it's a Saturday, maybe a Sunday, take that and do something else. It's a per diem job that you would do. It's a totally different setting. And then take that money and let it accumulate in terms of finances and direct that money towards a certain thing. It could be a trip to Hawaii or whatever it is that you want to do, but make that money separate in a separate fund. I think that's so beneficial to have, in the scheme of things. Atomic Changes is another book that we're reading right now. And what it winds up being is very small things over time. And so when you look at after a couple of years of doing that, now you're keeping up your skills in different areas. I think that's so beneficial to, it informs your primary job. It informs the job that you're doing on that per diem basis. And then that money is directed towards fun things.
Something that you wouldn't usually spend the money for. Yeah,
exactly. Maybe it's
a good idea.
Like you went scuba diving, what was it, 3 years ago with the sharks?
In the Bahamas, man, that was awesome.
Oh, I bet.
I would do that again in a second.
That's wonderful.
All right, one more question.
Yes, sir.
And this person could be if you could go to dinner and just like hang out, again, like me, you and Terry that night. Right? That was a great time. Who it could be anyone in the history so it doesn't have to be someone alive, it could be someone that's deceased already. Who would you want to go have dinner with that you could just hang out and talk to?
Yeah, that's tough. There's so many.
I know.
I don't know if you read, there's a book that John Lewis did, and it's pretty interesting. It's cartoonish. I bought it for my son. It's called March, and it's talking about the time period of Martin Luther King in the march in Alabama, in Selma, Alabama. I think it would be Martin Luther King in terms of all the things that he did. It's just a terrible thing to have happen. Where would we be if he were to continue? He wouldn't have been shot. I think that mindset, and that was powerful, powerful stuff. I would love to sit with him. Einstein, if you've read any of the biography stuff about Einstein as well, a fascinating dude.
Oh yeah, there's so many. Yeah, there's so many people. There
are. That one, I have many answers, and I would probably change that answer almost probably on a daily basis.
Yeah.
I think those two would, for me, would be primaries. Really quickly, I have biological dad as well. He marched with the Black Panthers back in
really?
60s in Washington, D.C. And at one point they told him, "Hey, why did he go home?" Because he was yelling just as loud as they were, and it was time to go home. But I think things like that sort of have shaped who I would meet with.
Yeah, that's incredible.
Fascinating conversation, right?
Oh, I bet. Yeah. Well, John, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to do this. And
my pleasure, brother.
like I said, let me get a couple more under my belt, and we may need to come back for a number 2 and start where we didn't get through the rest of this one.
I'm sorry if I went on too long in my answers.
No, you didn't. You did fantastic. I mean, it was great and insightful, and some great discussion. So I really appreciate it.
My pleasure, brother.
Okay, buddy. Hey,
right.
Yep. Have a good rest of your day, and have a good Labor Day weekend.
You too. 3 days.
That's right.
Take care, brother.
See you, John. You too.